The government's Brexit vision for Britain. A white paper is published that ministers say will create an independent and truly global United Kingdom.
Whatever the outcome of our negotiations, we seek a more open, outward-looking, confident and fairer UK that works for everyone.
But Labour claims the document says nothing and it won't get meaningful scrutiny. Also tonight, struck off the lawyer who acted dishonestly in bringing abuse charges against Iraq war veterans. The Bank of England warns of rising prices and sluggish wage growth. And Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Australian Prime Minister, both the latest targets of Donald Trump.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. The government today published its long-awaited vision for a post-Brexit Britain, with ministers claiming the best days are still to come. But critics quickly seized on what they said was a lack of guarantees for the rights of millions of EU nationals living in the UK. And there were accusations too that it had been rushed out with errors in the text and complaints from opposition MPs that they were not given a copy in time. From Westminster, our deputy political editor, Chris Shipp, reports.
Last night's vote in the Commons was all about unlocking the gate to leaving the EU. And now it is open. Today's document was all about which route the UK should now take. Inside, Theresa May spoke of the destination at which the UK will arrive once it's all finally over. The government's white paper was rushed out this morning by the Brexit Secretary, and the accusations it was written in haste were not dispelled by the late arrival of copies and the obvious mistakes in David Davis's script.
On the 23rd of June 2016, the United Kingdom will leave the European Union. This House... No, that's wrong. We've got 2 years to go, 2 years of this.
So, not the most sure-footed of starts, but Mr Davis promised it would be worth the bumpy ride ahead.
That our best days are still to come. Whatever the outcome of our negotiations, we seek a more open, outward-looking, confident and fairer UK that works for everyone.
But it will be a UK out of the single market. Despite that, the document said the new trade agreement with the EU may have to take in elements of current single market arrangements, and there was an acknowledgement that it could cost us. Once we have left, it said, it is reasonable that we should make an appropriate contribution. And on immigration, the government's priority for Brexit talks, it spoke of new legal controls. Migration of EU nationals, it said, will be subject to UK law. But Labour MPs were far from happy about the late arrival of the government's plan.
For months we've been calling for a plan. That was refused on the basis there wouldn't be a running commentary. Now there's a white paper produced too late in the day for us to ask meaningful questions of the Secretary of State here in this session today.
It is often said MPs were out of step with the country on Brexit. So today the committee which will scrutinise the plans for leaving the EU went to the place which had the highest vote for leave, Boston in Lincolnshire. And the MPs were left in no doubt why voters here chose to vote leave.
Well, it was the impact that immigration had had on the town was dominated our conversation.
They felt neglected and overwhelmed. Foreign languages, disproportionate agencies employing people, factories and in the field.
Maybe the flow of migrants can be stemmed and we can manage a town now, whereas before it seemed impossible.
You can see now why Theresa May is prioritising immigration control over the economy, and her blueprint for Brexit today promised to do exactly that.
Well, Chris is in the House of Commons tonight, so this white paper is not going to get an easy ride, is it, from MPs?
No, Mary, if you just think that when we were having this conversation this time last night, MPs hadn't yet voted, hadn't yet given their approval to leave the European Union. They did so with a pretty thumping majority last night. But if you like, that was the easy part. The difficult part is going to be in the detail that was contained in this 77-page document. And I'll give you an example why. You think of the Tories last night were pretty much united, with the one exception of Ken Clarke, that we should leave. However, they won't be so united over the plan in here to leave the single market. I think the plan for new laws in here, for example, will cause Labour some more division. They were pretty divided last night, but that will cause them more problems. And then I don't remember in the referendum campaign last year a commitment to keep paying money into the EU, perhaps quite the opposite. But you got a flavour from Lincolnshire in my report there that people do want to prioritise immigration over the economy, and that is Theresa May's plan.
OK, Chris Shipp in the Commons, thank you. The Defence Secretary has demanded a disgraced solicitor apologise for inventing false claims of murder and torture against British soldiers. Phil Shiner was a high-profile human rights lawyer who brought cases on behalf of Iraqi civilians. But today he was struck off after it emerged that he had lied about many of the allegations. Geraint Vincent reports.
Phil Shiner set himself up as a defender of human rights. Most notably in recent years, a defender of the rights of Iraqi civilians who he claimed had suffered terrible abuse at the hands of British soldiers.
Some of these Iraqis have been tortured, eyes have been gouged out.
But Shiner is now an ex-solicitor because he was dishonest and reckless in his making of those claims. His professional reputation was once very good. Shiner successfully sued the government over the death of Baha Musa, an Iraqi who was beaten to death by British soldiers in 2003. But in 2008, he claimed that British troops had tortured and killed other Iraqi civilians, including a 19-year-old, Hamed al-Swedi. 5 years and £30 million later, the al-Swedi inquiry found those claims to be wholly baseless. The tribunal found that Shiner had paid a fixer in Iraq to round up witnesses to the supposed abuse. Colonel James Coote commanded the soldiers who were falsely accused.
The time it's taken to bring these investigations to a conclusion has been very difficult for me, for my family, and I know for the soldiers who I've remained in contact with.
The government says that other cases brought by Phil Shiner against British service personnel will now be reviewed.
It was an appalling thing to put troops through this on the basis of what essentially were lies, and has now been discovered to be lies. And I hope he will now do the decent thing and apologise to the British Army.
Throughout a campaigning career, Shiner was rarely shy of the TV cameras. He said he was too unwell, though, to attend the hearing into his own misconduct, where he was described as being in a state of avoidance. Geraint Vincent, ITV News.
The Bank of England warned today that Britons are facing a double whammy of soaring prices and sluggish wage rises. In his quarterly health check of the economy, the Governor, Mark Carney, predicted better growth, but he also said that the cost of living will go up and pay will not keep pace with that increase. Well, our business editor Joel Hills is here. First the good, and the economy is going to grow.
Look, Mary, the resilience of the economy has taken the Bank of England quite by surprise. This wasn't just an upgrade, it was turbocharged. 3 months ago, the Bank of England was telling us the economy would grow by around 1.4% in 2017. Now they think it's going to grow by 2%. But prices are rising, the pound has fallen since the vote, inflation stands at 1.6% and counting. By this time next year, the bank thinks it will be 2.7%. As a result, this is the important bit, the bank thinks household income growth will fall from 2% to almost zero by 2018. So in summary, the economy hasn't skipped a beat since the referendum, in part because the Bank of England misjudged how consumer spending would hold up. But spending is about to get squeezed, and it's far too soon, as Mark Carney says, to say we're in the clear.
This stronger projection doesn't mean the referendum is without consequence. Uncertainty over future arrangements is weighing on business investment, which has been flat since the end of 2015.
So, consumers' upbeat, business investment, as Mark Carney made clear there, hasn't held up in quite the same way. That's something that it wants to keep an eye on. The point here, though, is that Brexit was not an event that happened on the 23rd of June. It was the beginning of a process. Mark Carney said it's a journey to leave the EU and it's only just getting underway. He was asked today, Mary, are interest rates more likely to go up or down? It could go either way, was his response. The future is that unclear.
Very helpful. Joel Hills, thank you. Now, a deal has been reached between Southern Rail and the drivers' union ASLEF, ending one of the disputes over driver-only trains. The two sides have been holding lengthy talks in a bid to resolve the long-running industrial action, which has sparked a series of strikes. But the RMT union's row with Southern is still unresolved. Donald Trump today defended his diplomatic style after he reportedly hung up the phone on Australia's Prime Minister during a call. The president said that sometimes he has to be tough with other nations to stop America being taken advantage of. And then he took on the Terminator, no less, urging religious leaders to pray for Arnold Schwarzenegger's TV show, as our Washington correspondent Robert Moore reports.
In a single phone conversation across the Pacific, the president appears to have done the almost impossible, jeopardised the exceptionally close alliance between the United States and Australia. Reportedly, after an angry exchange, Trump abruptly ended the call. Both leaders then sought to explain it.
When you hear about the tough phone calls I'm having, don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. They're tough. We have to be tough. It's time we're going to be a little tough, folks. We're taken advantage of by every nation in the world virtually.
As Australians know me very well, I stand up for Australia in every forum, public or private.
Perhaps even more bizarre this morning, if not as consequential, Trump used a solemn prayer breakfast to mock Arnold Schwarzenegger's TV ratings on The Apprentice.
The ratings went right down the tubes. It's been a total disaster, and I want to just pray for Arnold, if we can, for those ratings, okay?
Schwarzenegger was quick to taunt him back.
Why don't we switch jobs? You take over TV because you're such an expert in ratings, and I take over your job. And then people can finally sleep comfortably again.
The toughest job in this town may well fall to this man.
Well, my first day's here. I'm on the job. Hi, I'm the new guy.
Rex Tillerson today was beginning his first day as Secretary of State, America's top diplomat. As Trump continues to unsettle allies and adversaries alike, Washington is still in the midst of extraordinary turmoil.
Extraordinary times, as you say, Robert, and the White House just responding in the last hour to Trump's latest diplomatic controversy. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Sean Spicer, the White House spokesman, has just finished his briefing. It emerges from that this Australian row is very real and actually surprisingly bitter. It centres on an agreement signed by the Obama administration to absorb over 1,000 refugees currently being detained by Australia. Now, the White House describing this as a horrible, horrible deal for America, but by implication saying they will honour the agreement with Canberra, but only if they can subject this deal to, and these refugees, to what they're calling extreme vetting. And also, Mary, there's another development in the last few minutes. You'll remember that yesterday the White House National Security Advisor, General Mike Flynn, put Iran on formal notice, as he put it, following an Iranian ballistic missile test. Well, in the last few moments, Donald Trump has said that he is not taking military action off the table.
OK, Robert Moore in Washington, thank you. Still to come on the ITV Evening News. The 8-year-old shot in the head with an air gun. His parents call for new gun controls.
We want to get a petition going. We want to get our local MP involved to maybe just impose a licensing law with air weapons like what they have in Scotland.
And training for a marathon challenge, the double amputee taking on 6 races in 6 days in the Sahara. Those stories and more after the break. Welcome back. The parents of a toddler who was shot in the head with an air rifle have called for greater gun controls. 18-month-old Harry Studley was shot at a friend's flat when the gun's owner pulled the trigger, apparently to stop him crying. His mother, Amy Allen, told ITV News she refused to believe that Harry wouldn't make it. Rupert Evelyn reports.
The treatment for Harry Studley is ongoing and he is still mending. The helmet he wears is to protect his skull. But he's come a long way since being shot in the head with an air rifle. and doctors having to prepare his parents for the worst.
I got pulled out to a room to say that he was going to theatre, but you might want to say goodbye to your little boy because we're 100% certain he's not going to make it. Instantly then my heart just broke to 1,000 million little pieces. I looked round to the doctor and I said, I'm not saying goodbye to him, so I kissed him on the forehead and I said, Mummy, I'll see you later.
He was just 18 months old and bleeding with an airgun pellet lodged inside his head. The situation was critical.
I'm screaming at the ambulance people, just save my baby, and then that's all I can think of still to this day.
Harry was with his mother visiting neighbours at a flat in Bristol when Jordan Walters, who lived there, pulled the trigger on the gun he kept in the kitchen. His fiancée Emma Horseman was accused of encouraging him to use the 3-foot weapon inside the flat, but she was found not guilty in court. Walters admitted to causing grievous bodily harm.
It's an unforgivable act what he's done to hurt our child. We would like to try and start a campaign. We want to get a petition going. We want to get our local MP involved to maybe just impose a licensing law with air weapons like what they have in Scotland. I think that would be really important in our country, so the same dangers don't happen to another child or, so be it, an adult.
The swelling on his head is a visible sign of his ordeal, which has left him with a pellet inside his skull and blind in one eye. But he is alive and in the arms of his family, who say they now live every day as if it were their last. Rupert Evelyn, ITV News.
The Archbishop of Canterbury has apologised on behalf of the Church of England after claims of physical abuse by a former colleague were not reported for more than 30 years. Police are investigating allegations of the abuse of teenagers at a summer camp where the Most Reverend Justin Welby worked with the accused in the 1970s. And a car thief who killed a child actor and his aunt during a high-speed police chase is facing life behind bars. Joshua Dobby admitted manslaughter over the crash in South London last August. ITV News has learned that the rollout of smart meters across Britain could add an extra £1 billion to all our energy bills. The new devices measure how much we use and they're supposed to encourage us to save money. But the installation costs will be borne by customers. And as our consumer editor Chris Choi explains, those costs could be spiralling.
The aim is this will happen in every home across Great Britain, but our investigation reveals new warnings that both cost and inconvenience of smart meter installation will escalate. Power firms say the vast majority of homes need only one installation visit, but Kim Parkin needed 4.
I was fuming. The second engineer that came was told the reason I couldn't have the smart meters installed was because there was a fault of some sort.
Smart meters will cost at least £11 billion. We estimate that typically adds £350 per bill spread over time, and that repeat installations could add £1.1 billion. Yet our survey shows 82% think they're free.
Thanks for coming.
I met a smart meter installer. Speaking anonymously, he warns of problems.
It means that instead of we being there, say, 2 hours, we might end up being there 3 or 4 trying to get it to work. Then it could even mean a second visit. We may have to come back a third time.
British Gas says second installation visits are rare and satisfaction with the new meters is high.
Getting a smart meter installed with SSE is free.
Many suppliers, including SSE, advertise the new meters as free, but they'll filter the costs onto our bills over coming years.
As a nation, the cost of smart metering is going across bills.
Now so you think it's fair to say free, do you?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I think that's interesting. I don't think it's fair to mislead customers at all.
Well, will you think about changing the wording then, where you're saying getting a smart meter with SSE is free?
Sure, I think I'm very happy to have a look at that.
Government says customers will ultimately save energy and money. They reject warnings over mounting costs. But when it comes to rolling out smart meters, it's customers who'll pay. Chris Choi, ITV News.
And you can see Chris's special report, Energy Bills, Can We Be Smarter?, in full on the Tonight programme at 7:30. And finally tonight, the double amputee who's set to conquer the toughest foot race on earth. Afghanistan veteran Duncan Slater lost both legs when his vehicle was hit by a roadside bomb. Ever since, he has been determined to prove that amputees can do anything. Well, his first attempt at the brutal Marathon des Sables in the Sahara Desert ended in disappointment, but Duncan has not given up. And as the dune runner told our correspondent Dan Rivers, this year he intends to complete it.
Like any marathon runner, Duncan Slater is putting in the hours. But his personal challenge is as extreme as it's possible to get. He lost both his legs after being blown up by an IED in Afghanistan. Not only has he confounded medical experts with his recovery, but he's now preparing for the toughest running race in the world. 6 marathons in 6 days across the Sahara.
I just want to prove it can be done. I don't have any illusions that it's going to be, I'm not going to be first, but I might be last, but I just want to get it done.
This won't be his first attempt. Last year he came within 35 miles of the finish, but was forced to stop after his stumps were rubbed raw.
When I was in the desert last time, I had problems with my shin bones.
This time he'll be wearing new carbon fibre legs made in Italy, which could make all the difference.
The legs they couldn't be better. They couldn't be better. So I know that the weak link, I hate to say it, in the chain won't be the legs, it'll be me.
It's been called the toughest running race on earth. The Marathon des Sables, or Marathon of the Sands, is 156 miles across the Sahara Desert in southern Morocco, the equivalent of 6 normal marathons in 6 days. Temperatures regularly reach 50 degrees Celsius and there are no support teams. Participants must carry their own food and equipment. Duncan's record speaks for itself. He's already walked to the South Pole, an expedition supported by Prince Harry, and he's completed the London Marathon. But the Marathon des Sables is unfinished business, the Everest of endurance running.
You don't feel that you're like disabled, you don't feel like you're the amputee, you don't feel like you're the guy that's getting stared at, you're just part of the crowd that's all trying to get across the desert that day, and it makes you feel sort of a lot better about things. And I think that's why I kind of try and do things like this, because anyone would find it demanding. It doesn't single you out as a double amputee.
In 2 months he'll be back to face the dunes, determined this time he'll become the first double amputee to finish. Dan Rivers, ITV News.
Amazing man. That's it. Alistair Stewart's here at 10, but for me and all the team, bye-bye.